Hello, welcome to the Botanical Night. This is unusual Botanical Night because it's a night in a library. The library in Kyoto University is rich of botanical books, kind of old standard botanical books, and I will speak today about five most important, some of most important botanical books for the whole history. Number one is, of course, these two volumes of Species Plantarum by Linnaeus, published in 1753, 300 years ago, and still very valuable. Linnaeus was one of the most important botanists ever, and very importantly, apart from he collected all plants known to him in 1753 in that book, he also made very significant step towards understanding of diversity of plants and animals too. So he first departed from descriptional names to real IDs. So as you see here in the book, there are names of plants on the left, but on the right side, just one small word. This is a species epithet. For example, the Solanum has multiple descriptional names, but on the right side you will see small name which characterize species just by one word. This is ID. Some IDs could be completely wrong. There are multiple botanical cases when species epithet is absolutely irrelevant to the name, but we still keep it. Linnaeus separated description of object from the name or ID of the object, and this is a very important informational achievement. So in that sense he was biodiversity informatician, so the guy who worked like now with databases in online tools. Linnaeus worked with these two big books and many more, and this is why this library still wants this book, because this book is a foundation of whole botanical nomenclature, and if you in doubt, you must take this book and search the proper name and description and understand what Linnaeus mean under the some specific name. And this is only can be done by opening this book, maybe electronically or physically, like I'm doing now. So Linnaeus followed so-called artificial system of classification. This is not exactly correct. For example, one of the very funny thing, Linnaeus tried to make very straightforward system based on number of stamens, but he separated palms in a very different group. So he wanted to keep some natural groups as well, and his student Giesecke published a big book where he described the Linnaeus view of the natural system. One of most important things in this book is a map of plant diversity, because Linnaeus said that diversity of plants should be like a map of the country, and Giesecke made it. So this is a Giesecke and Linnaeus opinion of natural system. So what is natural system is anyway? It's a system of multiple characters, system which you cannot use anymore for identification. So for example, in case of Linnaeus system, if plant has 5 stamens, it should go to Pentandria. If 4 stamens, to Tetrandria, and so on and so forth. Very easy. So you don't need any manuals for plant identification. However, if you use natural system with multiple characters taken together, you must use some kind of additional identification tool. But first of all, that natural system must be developed. And most important book in that regard is book of Adamson. So Adamson published his Families of Plants, and this book contains mostly spreadsheets. So Adamson also was biodiversity information scientist, because he made lots of tables. Each table will be classifying plants according to one particular character. Then he synthesized all these numerous tables in one big classification. And on the basis of this multi-dimensional approach, he actually was he is using computer in his brain. He applied multi-dimensional tools to understand how families of plants, natural families of plants, could be shaped. And this is how first natural plant families were finally very robustly established. So again, Linnaeus knew about that approach, didn't follow it mostly, but Adanson was, well, tried to do it and did it very well. So well that his families, Adanson families, are still in place. Nothing, well, from molecular genomic approach changed many of these families. Many of them are still here without any changes. This is one of the most wonderful facts. So Adanson made very interesting spreadsheet-like approach and established families. And from that time, most of scientists start to follow natural system and use Linnaeus classification only as a secondary one, or finally forgot it completely. However, I don't think it's good enough, because Linnaeus system is by itself very nice, as I said, plant identification. And natural system is close to how diversity is really looks like, how plants are distributed in nature. And from that Adamsonian approach, natural approach, one of the most important attempt to, well, collect all plants together. So you see, Linnaeus has 2 volumes, and 100 years later, De Candolle made a very big, actually volumes looks like very small, but the actual size of letters is extremely tiny. So they are actually very big books. So these books contain all plant species known to the middle of 19th century. That was the last complete approach. So what I mean, like this approach covered all we call dicots. So monocots are like palms, grasses, sedges were covered in additional volumes, but not here. So altogether, De Candolle and Kunz, who covered monocots, they made a very, very broad coverage of all known flowering plant species by the middle of 19th century. Well, German scientists in the end of 19th century, beginning of 20th century, decided to make it again. That's very important, because new species are discovered almost every day, especially in tropical countries. So very important to have comprehensive, I mean like approach, which is not just a synthesis, like a mechanical synthesis of all what we know, but synthesis with some kind of thinking. And they made very important manual, very multiple volumes of Das Pflanzenreich. This was approach to repeat work of Linnaeus in the middle of 18th century, repeat work of De Candolle in the middle of 19th century, but now 100 years later. And unfortunately, that what failed. Failed, well, partially due to the war, because Berlin Herbarium was bombed in 1944. And so they lost the basis of their work, because all botanical works are typically based on the collections of dry plants, on herbariums. Herbarium was burned, and this Pflanzenreich work stopped. It's very strange and funny that today, in 2022, like we have a beautiful biological science and much more biologists than in 19th century, and of course much more than in the Linnaeus time, but we still unable to do the comprehensive catalog of the plants. Somehow we're unable to do it. It's very, very sad story, I would say. So with all this, well, mighty current biology, we still don't know what plants are growing on Earth. There are attempts to make it kind of mechanically, to synthesize multiple sources together. Several attempts already made. So far, nothing were successful. So, well, not to go with a very sad note, I would say that botanical books are a wonderful source of information. And what is more, they are not old. Of course, it's a 300 years old book. but it still contains very interesting and fresh information for the very simple reason plants are the same. So plants are the same, so knowledge which you can find in Decandol or in Adanson or in Linnaeus in that case is still fresh. So you still find very new, interesting, amazing facts simply by opening a book which in many other sciences might be considered, well, completely, absolutely outdated and have only historical reason. So botany and zoology are sciences which still use books of almost 300 years old. And I am quite happy about it. So this is Botanical Night, which tried to describe some of most important botanical books. Thank you so much.